All right, good evening, everyone. We will call our meeting to order for the Grants Pass School District Number 7 School Board meeting. Welcome this evening to all those in Zoom land and for everyone here and live and in person. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if all would like to rise and join with us. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll begin our agenda tonight with written communication. Superintendent Cole, do we have any written communication?
We did have one that was late and so did not arrive in your packet. I will send that to the rest of the board. It was a letter in summary advocating that we not wear masks because of adverse health conditions and otherwise. So it was from a community patron. And so I will send that on to the board.
Chair Nelson.
Yes.
I would like to have entered into the record that we have properly measured that we're all 6 feet apart to meet the OHA guidelines, and that we wear masks unless speaking would cause difficulty for other people. Since there are a couple of hearing impaired board members, I would like the Superintendent Cole and Chair Nelson to not wear masks because I have difficulty understanding what you're saying and reading your expressions. So that's also allowed under the OHA guidelines.
Okay, well, I would be fine with that. When I speak, I'll be happy to take my mask off, but otherwise I will keep my mask on to try to comply with the rules and regulations of our governor. So.
Oh, I'm complying.
So are we all. So thank you, Gary. Do we have any requests or if we have requests from persons wishing to speak to a specific action item or discuss items, they may put that in the chat and that will be monitored during our meeting tonight. So we'll head to line item number 3, our consent agenda. And we need to approve our board agenda minutes from our last meeting, and then also our agenda for tonight. And then we will have our financial and personnel report that all need to be approved. So we'll entertain a motion to approve those.
This is Cliff Coleman. I move that we approve those items.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Brian LaGrange.
Any further discussion? All right, Tanya, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Member DeLaGrange,
Yes.
Member Durbin,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes.
Member Coleman,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Richardson.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Then on to reports then, our staff reports. I believe principals for the junior high. Principal Blanchard and Sale, who would like to go first?
We like to do things together, so we'll do it together. But I think Tommy's up first, and he's a better speaker than I am in public or on screen. So he gets to go first.
That's not true. He wanted me to be the guinea pig here. We actually have 2 presentations tonight. We're going to have a quick one here, overview of what's happened at the 2 schools before we come back to our hour-long presentation about the schedule that will be riveting and exciting for most of you. So we're going to move on to the next slide for North Middle School right now. Yeah, going to highlight a couple different things that we have going on. One that we're very proud of is both schools are using Character Strong, and in particular over at North, our counseling center has a Canvas webpage, and we share out character dares each week for our students. They're easy, they're quick, they're fun to do, but they're character builders. The most recent one this week was Counselor Eli Bland put one out on kindness, and just sharing a couple very easy things for kids to do. They can do it in the home, they can do it with friends, but a couple of those ideas are to share a compliment. Another one is to give attention, with a couple examples of putting the phone away and giving attention to the person sitting across from you. eye contact being a big one. We talk about acts of service and pay it forward. All of those things are very easy for our students to do, regardless of location, but all things that are important to the education of a well-rounded student. We also have some character dares out there for our staff. We did one earlier that was called WD-40, and the reference to Grease, not the movie, but Grease as in WD-40. And what we would do is we went through our rosters and identified which students we were still working to establish relationships with, which students we needed to maintain relationships, and which students we needed to restore relationships. And then we made the focus on the establishing and the restoring. So those that we did not yet have a relationship with, and maybe one that or two kids that we could work to strengthen a relationship that may have taken a turn or has a kid scared of being in a school. And so how do we get them to kind of align with school again and get excited about it? So really excited about those. We also do a prize patrol. We have a couple different grade levels that are going out to families. Couple different reasons. One, to acknowledge those doing all the great things, and then some that might need a little bit of a spark, but always with a positive mindset. So we had groups of 4 going out, making sure that masks were worn and maintaining physical distancing, but we delivered goodie bags with all sorts of things in it, including gift cards to local diners in town. Took pictures, were able to share that back with the classes. The kids and families were super excited, especially our 6th graders who had not really had any form of interaction with staff members at school other than what they see through the video. And then what you see over on the right, the GP Superstar, that was put together by 8th grade, but used by a couple different grade levels to identify students who are making a positive impact in our online classes, being present, so those who may have had cameras on or participating in the chat. So just a good way to interact with students, and proud of them. And then the last one, just wanted to mention our science kits and library books. Miss Tanika Cooks, has been great at having her own Canvas page and encouraging students to check books out through Destiny, our online system, and she has families come in after school and pick those up. Our science kits, all 3 grade levels, have put multiple bags together with little inexpensive kits that our front office has put together that kids can then do experiments at home and follow along with the teacher. So 3 great things going on at North that we're really proud of.
And at South Middle School, over on the right-hand side was kind of a movement at the secondary schools that we started a few years ago at the high school and North and South Middle School, where we wanted to make it very apparent that when you walk through the doors of our building, wherever you go at the secondary level, and I know that the elementaries do the same thing, that we welcome you, and that students of all races, ethnicities, nationalities, diverse abilities, gender identity, gender background, all of that stuff. That is, when we talk about Trojan Pride at South Middle School, pride means something, and we teach that to our students multiple times throughout the year. And the P stands for perseverance, the R for wanting students to build in the character quality of respect. I standing for integrity and wanting our students to be people of integrity. Skipping over the D, but the E, people who strive for excellence. And then going back to D, students who embrace diversity. And we try to model that in our classrooms and in our hallways as adults, but then also wanting to recognize students when they embrace diversity as well. So the way that we define diversity at South Middle School is an appreciation of differences. We know that we get students and families of all shapes and sizes and colors, and we think that that is awesome, and that makes South truly special. We have an event this month. We're on our social media platform pages. We have asked our families, our students, parents, community members, and staff to respond in a Google form for what diversity means to them. There are a couple prompts that we've given, anybody who wants to share those out. And so a couple times a week, we only did one last week, and we'll do a couple this week of those thoughts about what diversity means, the importance of diversity at South Middle School. Our Parent Teacher Student Association has been pretty active this year and has some pretty ambitious plans in the next few months. But something recently that they decided to do is to adopt a street in Grants Pass as kind of a service project. For families. Oftentimes when families move to the middle school level, parents may have been very involved at the elementary school level, and sometimes they just like to say, I'm not going to be in the classroom anymore. There's also parents that really want to stay involved, and so we've been working on that within our PTSA to find ways and meaningful ways to parents, for parents to be involved and families to be involved with their students. And so will be a neat thing every couple months that our PTSA will have a clean up a street. We decided let's just get real local. And so Harbeck from Williams Highway on one side to Allen Creek Road on the other side, that is our street. I went and walked it last weekend, and it's already pretty clean. So that's awesome for us. But if you can make us work a little bit, and maybe every time you drive by West Harbeck between Williams Highway and Allen Creek Road, if you could litter, that would help us a lot for those bi-monthly cleanup projects that we have. The PTSA is also putting together a fundraiser right now. It's a flower fundraiser. They found out that I really like flowers, and we're doing a flower fundraiser. So we've sent that out to families where you can get 50% off some website in anticipation for Valentine's Day. It might have been just our PTSA reminding me to be a good husband and get my wife some flowers this upcoming weekend. And then just wanted to shout out to a lot of our classified staff. Are limited in person. We've had this provision since the beginning of the school year to, initially it was up to 250 students on campus each week. And then once the guidelines were loosened a little bit, we could have more than our 250 students as long as we kept contact tracing logs and all of this stuff. Every Wednesday, Director Evans sends an email, sometimes multiple times on a Wednesday, to get our number of cohorts and our total number of students that we have planned to be on campus. And she reports that to the Oregon Department of Education. You can also go on the Oregon Department of Education and look at every school and see what they have reported all across the state. And so poking around there a couple weeks ago, wanted to share that with our staff and wanted to share that with you. Consistently over a few months, South Middle School was number 2 in the state, next to a school in Independence, Oregon, for the amount of students that we were able to bring back on campus, students that were disengaged, students that have IEPs that need a little bit more one-on-one attention, students with language barriers that might need some more one-on-one attention, and then just some counseling supports for our students as well. So super proud of our staff and really wanted to highlight our special education staff that has been staffing our library and cafeteria for bringing those students on campus. We could not do that without them, and super fun that we get highlighted and they get to be recognized for that. I think we can go on to the next slide. Both at North and South, I'll take the athletics activities and maybe we'll hop back and forth between a couple of these. But our athletics and activities, as we'll share a little bit more later tonight, we have flag football that we're going to be able to offer students at both schools, cross country, track and field. I know at South and also at North, we have the Brain Bowl going on and the State of Jefferson scavenger hunt. So still some opportunities for students to be involved. And again, those students that are coming on campus for Brain Bowl, State of Jefferson scavenger hunt, those are added to the limited in-person numbers as well. As you heard Mr. Blanchard talk about, we're still doing Students of the Month as well. I'll hit upon our middle school elective interest survey, and then Mr. Blanchard will end us with the schedule redesign committee that is happening at both of our schools. We sent out a couple weeks ago to all of our middle school students at North and South an elective interest survey. And that kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with our schedule redesign committee in wanting to look forward to what is going to be a conducive schedule when we welcome students back on campus, and even thinking back to regular school years, kind of thinking that we might not have the best schedule for our mid-level learners in our district. But the middle school elective interest survey was trying to pick the brains of our middle school kids to see what they're interested in. If we were able to, maybe with some added monies this coming year through student investment account monies, to add maybe an elective or two at each middle school. And so that was really neat to see their feedback and input in the electives that they would want to see. And so don't be afraid or don't be surprised if you see a request coming from our awesome district director team because they're wanting to expand some of our elective options at the middle school level as well, especially in light of thinking what is going to draw our students back and really make our middle schools true mid-level educational atmospheres and climates for our kids to really explore their gifts and talents and get excited for entering into high school.
So in part, based on what Barrett just shared, but also because in the last year, we've experienced at both middle schools an 8-period traditional day. We moved to GP Learn at Home. We've got various schedules within the district at the secondary level now, with the high school being taking semester courses over the period of 1 quarter, attending 4 classes a day. At the middle school level, we have 6 classes, taking 3 each day. It's the right time for us to look at our schedule and have conversations, genuine, real conversations about what is best for the middle school student. And so we're both in the process with quite large teams, looking at our current schedules and looking at the possibilities, including a block schedule, including the possibility of a schedule that includes both block and traditional periods over the course of the day. And all with the thought that we currently have kids who are struggling. They've been out for 10 to 11 months and they're going to be transitioning back. That's a transition in itself, but transitioning back to school next year and an 8-period day, the number of transitions and missed opportunities because of the transition time, because of the beginning and ending of periods, to think about a kid at a middle school level who may have transitioned from 6 to 7 different teachers and then has to take math at 2:30 after they've been processing all of that information, may work for some and may not work for others. And so each school is currently, again, working with quite a large group of teachers to really be challenged to look at what is best for kids, not just to look at what is best for my individual program or the class that I teach, but the overall development of a child and what is best for them. So we're each in a little bit different part in that process. South is 1 week ahead of where North is, but we will soon be kind of honing in on something that we think is going to be best for the 2 schools. We'll bring that forward to Director Evans and our team and see what that brings about for next year. We're excited about the possibilities.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions from our board? Brian?
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was super informative. I just had a question about the elective interest survey, and I was wondering if has the board seen that, or is that something that we could have a look at the results of that survey?
We can definitely share that with the results. We had nearly 800 students from both middle schools, so maybe about 50% of students that participated in that. And so pretty cool to see what students indicated, and we can kind of talk through some of those results and what they indicated as well.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah, Barrett, if you could, you or Tommy could forward that on to Tanya and I, and we will distribute to the board.
I can take care of it for you guys.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, well, Mr. Blanchard, Mr. Sale, thank you very much for the great work that you're doing at our junior highs. We appreciate your time. Director Evans, new courses at GPHS.
And actually, I'm gonna just turn it right over to Ryan and Michelle, who are perfectly prepared to do this presentation. Right, Ryan?
Oh, I like that use of words there. And I think that perfect might have had a little different spelling than some might think. So thank you, Director Evans. Yes, we're excited to present to you 5 new courses for Grants Pass High School. Those 5 courses come from 5 different departments at our school. Just a reminder of the process for approval. Those classes most often are generated by individual staff members. Occasionally, administration may put a couple ideas out to the school to see if some people bite at those ideas. And actually, at least one of the courses is a reflection of that this year. We're going to start off, and we will go. Oh, I forgot about the process of approval. That, as originally, usually starts with our departments. We then have administrators look at that. Then we have our department leaders, our 11 department leaders look at it. And then, of course, our parent advisory council, followed by tonight's board meeting. First course is AP Environmental Science. This is one of several courses in the last 4 or 5 years that we have reviewed PSAT data. And so when our sophomores take that PSAT, when they take it, it gives them a likelihood of success in potential AP courses. And whether or not the school actually offers the exam, it will tell them a likelihood of success, for example, in AP Computer Science, or even a foreign language, and the several AP courses that we already offer. The data there is good, isn't that we have between 40 and 50 students over each of the last couple of years that have shown potential success for AP Environmental Science. Over the last few years, we've had discussions with the science department about it. We have a staff member within the department, Ross St. Clair, who was an environmental science major in college, and then worked in the field of environmental science for 6 years prior to entering education. So he is pretty excited about the course. Some things that we changed through the last few years when we first were discussing this. Originally, we thought maybe this could be a challenging freshman course for some of our advanced freshmen. We have since changed that to a junior senior level course, just looking at the whole scope and sequence and how it would best fit in with some of our choices within the department. A couple things just to note, we're pretty excited about having one more year of an option for students. As you may well know, there are 3 years of science required, and we want and encourage our students to take 4 years, and this could be a terrific 4th year addition for some students. It could be those kids who just soak up science and want to have every course available. Others, it may be just of their particular interest in that field. Michelle, if you want to go ahead and comment on some other aspects with college credit and so forth.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sweet. So I did some research as this course was coming forward, and looked at a variety of high schools around the state that offer AP Environmental Science, and there's a lot of them out there. And so felt like this was something that we could definitely add to our course catalog and the offerings that we give for kids. This course kids will be able to earn college credit for this course through the AP exam. So they'll be able to take that. In my research, probably maybe half of them will actually get science credit at a college or university, and the other would just get elective credit, both of which you need to graduate college. So I think it's beneficial to the kids. In talking with some high school teachers that teach this course, I think one of the coolest things that I got from them was that this class really opens the door for some potential career fields that kids didn't know existed. So they go into AP Environmental Science and they learn about all the aspects of our planet and how we take care of that. And then they work with people that are in the field of environmental science, and they go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was even like a real job. That would be so fun and cool to make a career. And so the kids that have been taking AP Environmental Science at other schools have really shifted and changed their career focus and gone to college for environmental science instead of something else that they were thinking of. So just the fact that you can open that door to kids with a career opportunity, I think is amazing. I think Dina Whitler put it very well when we were talking about this early on, that we need people to save our planet. And by teaching kids about the importance of environmental science, and we can get that next generation into those fields of work, I think is a very, very important thing.
All right, Michelle, thank you. You want to go to money management and personal growth?
Ryan,
Yes.
before you do that, there was written communication submitted by 5 science teachers at Grants Pass High School. I know you received the same communication and responded to those teachers. Can you, since it is a written communication to the board, can you, your response is included in the board packet, but if you could publicly speak to those, we'd appreciate that.
Sure. Yes, we had some meetings both with department leader Dina Whitler and with Ross St. Clair, who is slated to teach this course should it be approved, in terms of planning and working through any concerns the department might have. There was a course, as we made discussion, I mentioned a couple of things through the years. One was early on, there was a concern about staffing. Would we have enough room available to offer the course? That was a couple of years. In the last 2 years, we added an additional staff member in science. The other concern was, as I mentioned, the freshman year entry of this course versus junior senior. And we've also altered that. And I know that a number of science department members were relieved of that. The other pieces along there, I think you did see my responses to some of the other science teachers that had concerns and felt, I know administratively we've worked over the last 3 years, and ultimately what it came down to is we felt as though we did not want to deny our students an opportunity that other schools have, and deny an opportunity of a course that we have a qualified teacher, and basically ensure that our students have every opportunity for success, just like the AP College Board's mission is to connect students to college, success, and opportunity. And that PSAT data over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been able to add 5 different AP courses because of that data that showed how our students might show success and be college ready. So ultimately, although it was a 5-5 split within the department, this has received unanimous approval by our administration, our 11 department leaders, and of course the Parent Advisory Council. Anyway, so that's a quick summary, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Forgive me for not seeing where that information was located. Is that in the packet or is that an email that we got? So, thank you.
What we can do too is continue on with the other 4 courses, and then at the end of those 4, if there are more questions, on any of the courses, we'd be happy to answer those if that's okay.
I think that's great, Ryan. Why don't we continue?
Okay, Michelle.
Okay, so the next course is called Money Management and Personal Growth. And this was proposed by Allison Bolin, who's one of our math teachers. She actually taught this class previously at a different high school and found it so valuable and wanted to bring it to Grants Pass High School. Basically, kind of in a nutshell, it's adulting 101. It's how do kids survive in the real world after they leave high school and leave our homes as families. The other thing that she's going to tie in, which we get a lot in math classes specifically, is when the heck am I ever going to use this algebra information? And so she's going to really tie math into the units that she's proposing. So just to kind of give you a quick overview, she's going to talk about personal finance, nutrition, and meal planning. So if I want to make this dinner, how do I plan for that financially, as well as all the ingredients that I need? She's going to pull in exercise, travel, communication, employment, time management, housekeeping, including things like laundry, which I would love it if someone taught my kid how to do laundry. That would be amazing. Personal relationships and some community service. So I think it's such a great opportunity to give our kids some real world experience. I don't know about you guys as parents, but sometimes, as parents, we talk to our kids and they they tend to tune us out, like mom and dad don't know anything. And so having somebody who can reinforce and teach these additional skills, I think is amazing. There is some crossover in content with classes like economics, career academy, wellness, a little bit of PE. Allison has reached out to all of those teachers and will work with them to make sure that there's not a direct overlay of the information, like whatever she uses to talk about and assess personal finance, she's going to make sure she's not using the exact same thing that Carrie Alderson would be using in economics. And I think we can all agree that these concepts are things that our kids need to hear over and over and over again. The other great thing, which I really love and our counselors love about this class, is it's offered 9-12. So we really need electives for our ninth graders. We struggle to give them spots to go. And so having this class available to freshmen would be amazing.
Next course is American Civil War, and it is being proposed by Lois McMillan, of which I'm sure you're quite familiar. Lois, we would put up there with any other social studies teacher in the country, and she's had the opportunity to work with every outstanding social studies teacher in the country and is very up to date on this subject of the Civil War. As she notes in the plan course statement, this course is taught at the end of the 8th grade year. But in her notes, she talks about this being one of the most impactful, important pieces of history in our country, and feels as though it is the class alone dedicated to this course would do great justice. It is also a 9th through 12th grade elective, of which, as Michelle noted, we're hungry for, and our counselors are happy for that, and I believe our students will be very happy for that as well. They do touch on the issue of race in our history, especially through the era of Reconstruction. They talk about the history of that and how racial minorities have fared, what policies our government has adopted through the years. Whatever Lois touches seems to turn to gold. And so we're very excited about this potential course offering, the American Civil War. Michelle?
Next course on the list is basketball. This was proposed by Jeff Houston, who is one of our PE teachers, but has also coached basketball for many years. This would be an advanced physical education course. So the prerequisite is they have to take intro to PE and another PE elective before they can move on to this class. The purpose behind this was basketball tends to be a pretty popular unit in our PE classes. In intro to PE, they spend about 3 weeks on it, and in team sports, they spend about 3 weeks. So it's pretty limited on the amount of time that they can spend on it in a term. We have a lot of kids that take team sports just so they can play basketball. One comment that Jeff made is that within team sports, he's got the kids that love basketball and then the kids that it's not their favorite and they'd rather play badminton or something different. And so finding the opportunity for that healthy competition to happen doesn't necessarily work as well in a team sports environment. And so he wanted to propose basketball as an advanced class. It's open to all genders, all abilities. I think the coolest thing that I got from his presentation was he really wants to, bring those caveman court kids and the varsity basketball kids, and he wants to bring them together. There's things that they can both learn from each other, and to be able to create that cohesive unit with the athletes and the kids that love basketball, I think is a great thing. During a normal year, if you've ever been around our campus during lunchtime, caveman court is packed with kids who just love to play basketball. And so the class is not just about playing the game, it's about developing skills as an individual player and then using that within actual basketball games. I think the other thing that could stem from this is, not every kid can go to college and play basketball or take their basketball skills to the next level, but they can play basketball for many years. They could even get into maybe some coaching or officiating, all of which are positive things. Also within Southern Oregon, there's quite a few schools that offer sport-specific classes. And so I think this is a positive step. And I think it's a class that will really fill with kids who just enjoy playing the game of basketball.
Well, and I would also add that just being here at this office, this court is used right now by 20, 30, 40 kids a day. right now who aren't necessarily on the team at the high school. So it is a very popular recreational piece that is.
Thanks, Michelle. And lastly, we have audition techniques. This course is being proposed by Justin Hockey, our theater teacher. Just a couple of quick notes on it. The focus area here is for students who may be auditioning, learning how to audition properly, whether it be for college, for local theater, or anyone who might want to pursue that as a possible profession or a hobby. In addition, our band and our orchestra and our choir programs are very excited to see this course offered, as they have a number of students that also need to learn proper audition techniques. And I won't list them all, but such as vocal anatomy, diction, breathing, placement. In reaching out to Justin, I was initially thinking this is a pretty narrow focus in terms of number of students that may take the course. He had a quick count of probably close to 20 or 25 that would qualify to take this. And again, this is not just for theater. This would also be open to the other music classes as well. So those are our 5 courses. And again, we'd be happy to answer any questions about any of those 5 courses.
Right?
Hey, Ryan, I just have a question about, or I guess whoever wants to answer, about the American Civil War course. And I was just reading in here that it looks like right now it's kind of covered at the end of 8th grade, if there's time, and we don't really, sometimes maybe there's more time for it than others. So is this elective course going to affect the 8th grade teaching of it, or is it going to be kind of a duplicate, or is it just going to expand or reduce or affect it at all?
Good question. Of course, Lois had taught at South Middle School for many years, and that's why she's so familiar with what is taught at the 8th grade level. So in talking with her, I'm confident that she will reach out with the middle school in terms of them being able to address, because their focus at the Civil War at the end of 8th grade, as I understand it, is pretty narrow. Her 18-week course, as I won't repeat what you probably have in front of you, but goes greatly in depth. And so, yeah, anyone who might be interested in that particular part of the U.S. history course in 8th grade would have the opportunity to have a greatly expanded focus.
Great.
This is Member Brownell. I know that I've heard a lot of comments just in the community about how needed a money management and personal growth course is. And I think it would be well received in our community as well as in the schools itself.
Thank you, Member Brownell. I would just add that feedback came back very clearly when we were polling parents and community around the student investment account and the types of things that we need to be adding. So we hear this has been a common theme for a number of years. And so excited to be able to offer this course. My kid's taking it next year.
Prepare for launch.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, I don't have a comment about a specific class, but just in general, the idea that something about offering maybe too many AP classes and that kind of thing. And so I just want to put forth the idea that we're hoping to get on the path to give each kid a personalized education. And so having more classes, even if there's fewer students in them, I realize we have operational expenses associated with those, but as technology changes and the way we deliver education changes, we should be leaning into delivering more personalized instruction. And so I just like to give you a thumbs up for more classes. There we go.
Ryan, I do have a question about the AP class, just reading through the concerns of the 5 teachers who I guess were opposed to adding the class. Are the AP classes, at least in the science department, well attended by the students? Or do you have do they fill up or are they empty? Is this going to affect maybe the attendance of some of the other classes? Would be my first question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Currently, I think you see the three there, or you may see the three there. AP Bio, AP Chem, and AP Physics are the other three courses offered. Two of those three do have a math level requirement that's pretty high, and so it does narrow the focus of how many students are able to access those courses. Chemistry, AP Chem has been pretty consistent, about 20 to 28 kids every year, so it's been full for one section. AP Bio has ranged through the years. At one point, it was two sections of around low 20s to 25 students, and now it's been down to one, and about the same number, roughly maybe high 20s or so. And then AP Physics, we're actually going to come to you. Tricia's going to put it on, I think, on the agenda, upcoming board agenda. Nick Kennedy, the teacher of that course, is rewriting that course, and we're excited about opening it up to, rather than it be a calculus-based physics, it'll be a more algebra. It will be an algebra-based physics, and I don't want to steal Nick's thunder or Tricia's thunder later. But we are excited that and that's our smallest course. It is literally, if you haven't taken calculus yet or concurrently, you can't take that course. And so while we're super proud of our kids for earning high level physics credit, we really want to expand the number of students who can access that course. So directly to answer your question, we will see. What we're hopeful for is more, as we've had avid students start to go through our 4 years of high school, what we found is our AP offerings, as we've increased those, they're able to access courses that are of interest to them, whether it be an AP computer programming or an AP language or AP psychology, or in this case, hopefully environmental science. So we're hopeful more students are taking those courses, and it's not so much that if they're picking, one doesn't get offered. That being said, we do look at those numbers, and other than that AP Physics piece, we really try and have that 20 threshold if at all possible, or very close to that. So we would hope that we get at least that number of students to sign up for this course.
Thank you. I guess my only other question, and here's a softball for you, and I think I already know the answer, but we are encouraging all students to take AP classes as they meet with their counselors. That is something that we encourage the kids to do. Is that correct? I mean, I would hope that as they're able to do that, we would encourage them to participate in higher level class.
Absolutely. Yes, Dr. Nelson, that is something we do. In fact, we have 4 teams within our Avid Site team, and our leadership team is actually looking at this exact focus, how we can reach out even at the middle school level to really encourage these offerings for kids.
Great.
No, and I'm
Required. Yeah, we don't persuade, we require.
I'm going to just thank you, Gary. Add to make reference to that poster on the wall that in 2014, 15, 16, and 19, we were recognized by the College Board as being AP honor roll student. And that means the number of AP courses we offer and the number of students enrolled. So the high school has been very consistent in encouraging rigor.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you bringing that to us, and we look forward to voting on that here in just a few minutes.
Thanks.
Director Evans, middle school reopening plan, getting closer. Maybe it's getting farther away.
Trish, Director Evans texted both Tommy and I and said that her internet is having some difficulties. So we might be able to start that for her.
Go ahead, Barrett and Tommy, since I think you were the presenters on this and she was just going to hand it over to you.
She may have had a song that she was going to introduce this topic with, but I'm not going to sing. I think Dr. Bloomquist has our presentation up. We have a virtual town hall event tomorrow night for both North and South Middle School. And we at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. So we've been advertising that to our families the past couple days. And so we're going to preview a little bit of that right now. We're not going to bore you with all of the information that we're going to entertain our students and families and parents with tomorrow evening, but we will go through a couple important pieces, and then Trish can interrupt us as she needs to as we kind of move through this. So that is our intro screen. So Todd, you can move on to the next one. The agenda that we'll be sharing tomorrow evening in our town hall, we're going to be talking about the difference between what a hybrid schedule is at the middle school level versus a CDL model. When students come to school, what their day will look like, what each class period will look like, materials that they'll need, safety and cleaning, food, and also talk a little bit about testing and what PE and music classes will look like. We'll give a quick activities and athletics update, and then get into what that rollout for when we start will look like. So we'll try to cover most of those this evening. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Blanchard.
So as all of you know, we've been in the CDL model at the secondary level for the duration of the year, and we are transitioning to a hybrid. And for most of us in the know, we kind of know what the hybrid is, but we'll take a short amount of time to share exactly what that means. And so this was a slide that we had shared when we did our first town hall prior to school starting, because we knew that we were going to be starting in a comprehensive distance learning model, and hopefully, and we all wish that it would have been sooner than later, but we're at that time where we will transition to a hybrid model. So we'll make sure that parents understand that that hybrid model means we are returning students in cohorts to campus. At the middle school level, they will be attending a couple times a week while doing online work at home, and more information to come as we work through this presentation. All with an end goal of getting all kids on campus at some point in time. As we referenced in our earlier presentation, we're looking at a schedule redesign. We're also being mindful that we do not know what the fall looks like. While we all hope that every kid is on campus every day, we also want to build a schedule that allows for us to work well if we have to transition to a hybrid model and aren't able to start at the beginning. Dr. Todd, we can move to the next one. So we chose to show pictures to illustrate what the comprehensive distance learning model has looked like, and then you'll see shortly what the new one will look like. But essentially, as you all know, we've been experiencing online schooling for the duration of this year. So all kids are at home outside of the Lippy students that Barrett emphasized over at South. In our model at the middle school, they were attending 3 periods a day, but doing so each day of the week. So we're going to make sure that families know when students are supposed to be coming to school. And this is really important, and it has to do with our cohorting. In an effort to keep our class sizes down to a manageable number for safety and health protocol, we've had to split our classes into 2. Under the CDL model, because everybody's at home, not worried about numbers as much, we have had first period kids coming together with the same teacher. But we can't bring 25 kids, 30 kids on campus at the same time with the same teacher. We could not meet the guidelines for Ready School Safe Learners. So we have split our kids up into 2 different cohorts. We have what you see highlighted here is they're named by M and T. So if you look in the upper left, that'll be a first period kid who will attend on M day, which is a Monday and a Thursday. More to come on that. And on the bottom, that's a T kid. That's a kid that will show up on Tuesday and Friday to attend school. The A means absolutely nothing to students or families. It's no different than what they've seen all year long. That has nothing to do with A or B cohorts or anything that's going on at the elementary school. We have made a promise to families outside of very special circumstances that kids at one level will be attending school on the same day as the others. And so Our elementary kids that are attending on Monday, Thursday, if they have siblings at the middle school or high school, those students will also be attending on the same day to help with supervision, babysitting, transportation, all of that kind of stuff. So we have not made any changes to the days that the kids are going to school, and we'll make sure we emphasize that to alleviate any concerns that families may have. Okay, Dr. Todd, next one.
In addition to, oh, yeah, in addition to answering the question of when do I come to school, we also want to answer the question, what does my day look like? And what does class look like? Next to each student's schedule, as Tommy explained, there will be either an M or a T. If there's an M, again, they'll be coming on Mondays and Thursdays. And if there's a T next to their period number, they will be coming on Tuesdays and Fridays. So again, the pictures for us made a lot of sense to Mr. Blanchard's brain and my brain, because it just is a nice picture image of what do I do. So if I'm an M kid, I attend school on Monday. On Tuesday, I'm at home and I do school at home. On Wednesday, I also do school at home, and we have a special advisory period in the morning where there's a very intentional social emotional check-in and then an opportunity for an extension for students to continue to meet with counselors. There's also office hours on Wednesdays for students to seek help from their teachers, but mainly that is a work from home day. If I'm an M student, again, on Thursday, I attend school in person, and then on Friday, I do school at home. The highlighted boxes, the Monday, Thursday, or if you're a T kid, a Tuesday, Friday, those highlighted boxes, you'll see the work at home days. We do have work for students to do at home. They're attending synchronously their classes, and so the teachers are getting their minds wrapped around and having great attitudes right now with what does that look like for me, teaching half of my period 1 class online and half of my period 1 class in person. And so we've done a little bit of professional development and just giving some resources for teachers for how to structure the period, which will be the next screen, I believe. What does my day actually look like from a student perspective? Oh, first, we did want to talk about a 6th grade schedule. You're good with showing that, Dr. Todd. Again, this is a Monday, Thursday student. They will have 3 class periods when they're on campus. For a 6th grade student, it's periods 1, 2, and 4. Why do we skip 3, you may ask? In their schedules, it's built in as that's a lunch period. If we were at some point this year able to transition back to a full day of learning and all kids all the time at school. That's what a 6th grader, when they have lunch, is period 3. So their first 3 academic periods are periods 1, 2, and 4. Class periods are roughly 60 minutes each. And then the rest of the day, when they exit the building, they get an opportunity to take lunch with them on the bus or being picked up by their parent or walking home. And then they're doing asynchronous work or kind of school work, doing it at home for their other classes. But when they are attending on campus, it's 3 periods a day. On a Tuesday for that 6th grader, they're doing work at home and they're attending their periods 5, 6, and 7 classes. So the latter half of their schedule with the academic periods. And again, their class periods are roughly 60 minutes in length. We gave a couple additional minutes for our first period of the day, just learning from the awesome job that our elementary schools did in transitioning kids back in the first couple weeks. I'm saying the check-in process takes a little bit longer. So we're giving ourselves a little bit extra time in that first academic period of the day. Students on this Monday, Thursday schedule, on a Tuesday when they're doing school at home, they're logging in on their Chromebooks or computers with the rest of their period 5 class. Those Tuesday, Friday in-person kids are on campus live with their teacher, and the Monday, Thursday kids are live with their teacher, but they're at home. And that teacher is teaching both to the students online and to the students that are in front of them. The rest of the day also for them is homework and asynchronous work to be getting done. And then on Wednesday, all students again are tuning into their advisory period at 10 o'clock and then office hours at 10:30. And then the rest of the day used as asynchronous time to be working on their schoolwork. If you go to the next screen, Dr. Todd. This is an example of a sixth grader with a Tuesday, Friday schedule. And again, it's just the highlighted days of when they're on campus. You'll note that for this student, a period 1, 2, and 4 on Monday, they don't have those periods again until Friday when they're on campus. And then their Tuesday days that they're on campus, periods 5, 6, and 7, they have those classes on Thursday. And so right now, if I say we're on an A day or a B day, our middle school kids know what that means. On Canvas, when they log in every day to their classes, there's a notification whether you're a North or South student that says today's an A day, 6th grade. That means that you're attending periods 1, 2, and 4. So we're trying to keep things as consistent as we can while also giving our kids an opportunity and a chance to see each of their teachers once a week and going through all 6 of their classes and being live in person with each of their teachers once a week. So every week, students will have 2 live class times with each of their teachers. One of those will be in person and one of those will be online. You can go to the next screen, Dr. Todd. And what does class actually look like? For our students that are on campus and in person, we've kind of made it make sense for us in our teacher brains to say there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end to the period. What we're holding tight to is that on-campus in-person kiddos, they're going to be bringing their Chromebooks and chargers with them each day, and they're going to be sitting in their period 1 classroom with their teacher, and they're tuning into their Canvas page, and they're getting that lesson online synchronously with their online students. What we're holding fast to is that is for the first 15 to 30 minutes. Every time there's new information being presented and taught to our students, whether they're in person or online, they will be getting that synchronously at the same time. The middle of the period, we've designated for individual work with the teacher moving about the room to assist students. We want our teachers tending, and the priority is that they're tending to students that are in person and giving them that individual feedback and help that they need. At the end of the period, there is closure with cementing learning in the minds of students both on campus and in person. But at the end of that 60-minute period, we're wanting to bring closure to the lesson with students on campus. The next slide talks about students that are online and at home. And again, we're trying to make it make sense in our brains with that 60-minute period. There's going to be a beginning, middle, and end. It's a little trickier with the students that are not on campus and online at home, but they're also on their Chromebook at the same time to try to build in that regularity that middle school students need. They're on their Chromebook with their teacher, tuning into that lesson, and also knowing that there are their peers there in that period 1 class or whatever that period is that are on campus. We know that that's going to be the first 15 to 30 minutes. The middle of the period for our students that are online will be a little bit different. Again, the priority is going to be tending to students that are in person. And so that individual work with the teacher, they're moving about the room to assist students that are in person. That doesn't mean that teachers will not be able to tend to students online. A lot of our teachers said, can I keep our students that are at home in my classroom for the entirety of the period? We said, yes, you have that flexibility as a teacher. We want you to be mindful, and we want our students not to be in front of a screen for a huge chunk of time, but we do want them to have that flexibility as well. Our students online and at home will have required asynchronous work every single day. And again, giving that flexibility for teachers that they will be tending priority to students that are in person, but they may be able to monitor students online as well. And then at the end of the period, we want our teacher, again, bringing closure to the lesson with students on campus. And for students that are online, this may be done earlier in the period with students that are at home. So that might be half an hour into the period where a teacher says, hey, if you're on the computer, love seeing you. We'll see you tomorrow, or we'll see you next week. You know what work is supposed to be happening right now. We want to see your face in office hours when we have it later today if you do have any questions. But right now you're free to go. But then teachers also have that flexibility to say, I want you to stay on and ask any questions if you have it.
So originally there was a little bit of trepidation about how do I teach kids online and in person at the same time. And staff has been amazing at working through how they're going to do that for their individual classes, but really appreciative of staff buying into how important it is to connect with our students. The concern is that if students are on campus and we're not connecting with them on the days that they're not here, that would mean in a time when we're extremely worried about connection with students and students having a connection to school, that in reducing it to 2 days a week, connecting with those on campus, therefore allowed for 5 days, 3 days during the week and 2 days on the weekend that students would not be connecting with adults. And so while it is a little bit scary to consider that I'm teaching both in person and online kids at the same time, the need to connect with students was necessary, and something that actually staff came together, and we have about 90% of our staff that believe so highly in it that it was pretty easy to move forward with the schedule. So very thankful for their efforts there. Okay, Dr. Todd, we can move to the next one. We'll spend a little bit of time. I'm not going to go into huge detail on this, but we'll make sure that families know that the expectations are that they bring their Chromebooks and chargers to campus each day. We have blue neoprene casing that the kids can put it in to transport back and forth. We have backpacks, and we'll encourage those because we are eliminating lockers and high touch points in congregation areas. When students have PE on campus, we're going to ask they wear appropriate attire to be able to exercise, but the exercise will be very moderate in an effort to maintain health and safety at the school. And then we will be limiting shared supplies in as many ways as possible, although that is challenging with PE, it's challenging with art, it's a challenge when you try to do science experiments, but all in an effort to keep those as safe, students and staff as safe as possible, we will be limiting those shared supplies. Okay.
We know that there might be questions about safety and cleaning as well. And so just want to reiterate with parents that buildings are extensively fogged each night with Director Ely can correct me because I'm probably wrong, but I think it actually smells great. It's thymol that's put into our fogging machines, and it's a fragrant scent, and I actually like it. But our buildings are extensively fogged each night, multiple times throughout the day. High touch point areas, bathrooms, push bar doors, door handles like that. They're either fogged or they're being wiped down with a solution called Oxifer. Again, multiple times a day. Classrooms, because our students will be in a limited fashion with limited time, so as to not expose themselves for many minutes with transitional periods, moving from class to class. In between those classes, teachers are spraying desks that students were at with Oxifer, letting it sit for a minute, which is the recommended time, and then giving a quick wipe. Again, something that teachers at both schools wanted to do instead of having students stay put in one classroom and teachers rotating throughout the day. We feel like our students can do that responsibly with the transition times between period, and our teachers, we have trust and faith in them that they will be spraying and then wiping down those touch point areas that our students will be at. In each classroom and at multiple stations throughout the campus, we have hand sanitizer stations in each classroom, and we'll be asking students when you enter a class, give a little squirt into your hand, and then when you leave the class to go to your next period, also give a squirt into your hands. If you have an elementary kiddo, you'll know that that is their process for when they check students into their buildings each morning. They give them a little squirt of hand sanitizer and off about their day they are. We're going to be requiring masks at all times, but we did just get the provision in our safety meeting last week with Director Ely that in each classroom there can be a mask break area that's separate in a separate part of the classroom for if a student really needs to just take like a 20-second break, take that mask off real quick and then get back to work with what they're going to be doing. And so want to allay any fears that teachers have with that as well, and parents have with that with safety and cleaning.
We all know how important food is. We all enjoy food, but the necessity to provide breakfast and lunch for our kids in our community is really, really important right now. So all of our kids will be guaranteed a grab and go breakfast in the morning. When students check in at each of the locations that the two middle schools have, they'll be checked in. And at that time, they will be given a lunch. We'll have a person there with gloves who will hand them the grab and go. They will not be allowed to eat it until they get to the classroom. So as soon as students check in, grab their lunch, they report to or grab their breakfast, they report to their first period class. And in their first period class is where they will consume the breakfast. So that is one additional opportunity or time when a student wouldn't have a mask on, but they'll finish their breakfast, they'll put their mask back on, a quick cleanup, and then prepare for first period. You'll notice on our schedule that kids are finished at 12:30. We've got a pretty tight turnaround to make it to transportation to the buses to get them students delivered home so they can head out to the elementaries and pick up elementary kids. But the two schools are slightly different in how lunch will be handled at this point. South will have a couple checkout points where kids are going to take them as they're exiting, because our turnaround is a little bit tighter. And if you're familiar with the busing over at North, we have to walk over on Morgan to the other side of Highland. And with the tight turnaround, we need to get the lunches in the hands of kids quicker so they can get to those locations. So our food service will be delivering totes with appropriate meals to each one of our classrooms. And the last minute teacher will hand out the lunches right prior to students exiting. So our teachers will be washing hands in gloves. The kids won't be touching each other's materials. They'll just be receiving the lunch bag on the way out, and then they will head to their desired location, either bus, parent pickup, or to be able to walk home. All right, ready for the next one? So some questions about how are music and PE going to be conducted. We talked just briefly about PE earlier, but in our music classes, we have singer masks. And if you're not familiar with those, they're similar to the mask you have now, but it almost looks like it's a beak. It actually extends out a little ways, and that way it removes the mask from touching the mouth. And so kids can sing, but it does contain any droplets that may come out as a result of singing. And then there are bell covers, so devices to put over the instruments. And so when we're playing an instrument, that it doesn't blow the stuff out in the direction of other students or at the teacher. So trying to make safety paramount. Again, quickly, PE, they'll attend PE one time a week in person, and then following activities that staff has set for them outside of school when they are at home. So majority of things will be low intensity workouts. If we have to be inside, we will work hard to get our students outside as much as possible. It helps with space, it helps with health and safety, and it's just good to get the kids outside. But we know we'll face some weather situations where that is not allowable. The bottom point, just the fitness tracker. Students are keeping track of their workouts throughout the week, and we'll be filling those in as part of their requirement when they're on campus.
Early in our board report, we reported on our athletic teams and activities we're able to offer again, able to currently offer flag football, cross country, track and field, and we're starting that this next week with flag football practices. And so we hope to have a ton of participation with that. I know a lot of students and families have been looking forward to that. And then clubs, that's dependent upon the club and the teacher. And so I think at both schools, if you go onto the website and look at clubs, you can see a list of some clubs and who to contact about those. And really the most active clubs that we have going on right now are Brain Bowl clubs that are both at North and South. The big question, though, is, well, when do we start? And that's the last piece that we'll hit upon with our families. This is a lot of color on a screen right now. Where we're at right now, we're Tuesday the 9th, and we finish out this week with Friday the 12th. The B day, A day, B day, A day, that corresponds again to what our students know. On B days, I have the second set of classes in my schedule. The A days, I have the first set of classes in my schedule. On Thursday the 11th, assuming all things go well at the elementary level with no more than 2 positive cases at any one site, Director Ely or Superintendent Kolb will shout the trumpets and will let us know that we are able to start transitioning students at the middle school level the following week. What that looks like, just because we have a funky President's Day coming up, we will finish out our AB rotation for curricular purposes. Monday, February 15th, we're going to observe as President's Day and not have school. Within the within the agreement between the association and the district, we are giving teachers, again, a prep day to finalize any room setup or buildings, just to finalize anything. And so that's our designated prep day where we don't have any classes. And then Wednesday will be our hybrid Wednesday and our first day in our hybrid schedule, where students will tune into their first period class. We'll give a quick advisory lesson and then open it up for office hours. And then the 18th and 19th will be just sixth graders. We'll have just our M students on campus. And so again, that's you're either an M or a T students. M will be on campus and T will be online. Just our sixth graders on campus as part of our agreement as well, that we would have that slow start. So that Thursday and Friday, we'll just have sixth graders on campus. Seventh and eighth graders will continue on with their CDL learning and still have class times those days. And then the following week on Monday, the 22nd, we would have all of our students back, and that's where we would start our regular schedule. Students coming on Mondays, Thursdays, or Tuesdays, Fridays, but having class 4 days a week synchronously and classwork for each of their classes through the week. If we're not able to start, and there are more than 2 positive cases at any one site, I think Tommy's going to talk through what another date might look like for us. And this doesn't change regardless of if it's the following week or if it's 4 weeks from now. We'll still be able to have kind of this schedule.
Yep, Dr. Todd, if you can go to the next slide there. So this would be the case for any traditional week following the 18th. So if we're following next week, we hope in all ways possible that we can get good news on Thursday to start the following week. But if not, that decision will be made again on the following Thursday, which would be the 18th. It would be a quick turnaround and planning for parents, but in the case that we do get word on the 11th that we can't start, but on the 18th we do, we would provide the prep day for teachers on Friday the 19th, and we would then start our 6th grade soft start on Monday the 22nd with half of our kids, our 6th grade M students showing up on Monday, followed by our 6th grade T students on Tuesday, enter into the hybrid Wednesday, and then we would start our rotation with all 3 grade levels, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, with our M students being on campus and our T students being online, and flip-flop the following day. So that essentially would be what the model that we would follow moving forward every week until we ran into a situation where there was potentially another holiday or an off day there. So this is just to give them an idea of what would happen if we weren't able to start on President's Day week, but we hope that we are able to get our kids in sooner than later, and hopefully that means the high school would not be far behind.
We've got a couple more slides with tomorrow night, but we're going to open it up again with our Q&A section with our town hall event tomorrow, but did also want to offer if there were any questions that we could answer, we will be happy to deflect and let Director Evans answer those for us.
Great job on the presentation, you guys.
Questions from the board? It is a bit complicated staring at the colors because they don't represent the students and the alternating and rotating. But to digest the first time, it took me a couple of times. But the rationale makes sense, and they're going to get kids back. That's the exciting part.
So only once a week?
No.
Students will only see their teacher once a week?
Right. Yes.
Right.
Physically in person. Yes.
And then obviously taking attendance, required attendance at the home days?
On all days.
On all days.
Because they'll have some.
Kids will be on campus 2 days a week and see all 6 of their teachers between those 2 days on campus. Attendance will be taken every period, Monday through Friday.
Any other questions from the board? Well, thank you, gentlemen. We look forward to having the kids go back to junior high. So thank you for your hard work. We wish you the best of luck. All right. We'll move on to our next agenda item, quarterly review of our strategic plan.
Yeah, so our director team is prepared to give a pretty comprehensive overview. There is the document in your binder, but we have a presentation that encapsulates the information here. So Todd, why don't you go ahead and move on to the presentation, because that font is just too small. So go ahead and Todd, this is a nice intro slide to put together. So there you go, just revisiting our pillars that are guiding the work that we're doing here. And pillar 1, 2, 3, and 4 is how they're often referenced on your board agenda. So go ahead, Todd. So pillar 1, I believe Todd and Linda, we're going to review this.
Yes, now that I've got my other computer up, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, I think I need to mute. Hang on. There we go. Okay, so just talking about our social emotional teaching and learning, you know, in the plan, we had a lot of ideas going into this year. And of course, it seems like every single document I've been writing, I have to put a qualifier out there. Due to the pandemic, we're not able to do this, that, or the other thing. Given that, we still are kind of pushing forward. So just kind of give some context to it. You know, we started about 5 years ago with the Collaborative Learning for Educational Achievement and Resilience with Dr. Blodgett. We started with ACEs, giving a full course of ACEs to every single staff member and trying to do that with each new hire that we've brought into our D7 family. And then something about 2 years ago came on our radar, which lined up really nicely with the brain science and the trauma science, and that had to do with positive discipline. And I think Christine's on here somewhere tonight, but she's just said, hey, my team's ready to go. So they've become a pilot site this year with the collaboration with the Southern Oregon Education Service District. And they've had all their staff trained. So 27 staff or 24, I can't remember, all the staff have been trained. And then we were just organizing some additional staff training for them so that the whole team is being kind of immersed in this positive discipline, which has got great tools to apply directly to the classroom. What we like about that is that it's very practical things for teachers and actually all staff in a building to do to really support kids. In addition to that, you know, counselors or behavior intervention specialists that we have on site now, 27 so far are working towards a certification in that neurosequential model in education. And just to bring that back into context, that's the work that Dr. Bruce Perry's been doing for quite a few years now. And that really helps our staff go through how does this brain thing actually work? When it has had adversity and it's adapted to that, what are some other ways that we can help the brain adapt to more positive ways to interact with the world? And then Linda, do you want to jump in and talk about the positive behavior supports?
Yes, definitely. Behavior has been a topic that has come before the board many times because we have a lot of the youngsters that have been dysregulated. It's been a challenge. And another training that we've provided is our school psychologists have trained our special education staff, our counselors at both the middle and high school in positive behavior support plans for students, which is really a collaborative process in skill building. So very exciting. Instead of kind of a rules and consequences based system, we're dealing with really building the skills that kids need to be able to function well in school. And so we really have a whole big group of folks that are now trained in those collaborative processes. Moving on to behavioral referrals, for obvious reasons, this data isn't really going to be valid this year with very few kids in person. So that'll be something that we have an asterisk beside due to COVID. And then moving along.
Real quick, Linda, I'll make a comment on that for the board.
Okay.
Put it into perspective, I pulled the data last year between September to February, we had nearly 14,000 documented referrals in the district.
And this year, from September to February, we have just over 300. So just putting that into context, why that data is really irrelevant. Go ahead.
Moving to the next section, another way that we know we could build resilience and also great family outreach is to provide really warm and efficient transition activities for all of our students who are moving on from one level to another. And so we're very intentional about that, and I think always looking to improve upon what we do. So just in terms of just specifically students with disabilities, we have very carefully planned virtual meetings with every single family coming from early intervention to kindergarten, from 5th on to the middle school, and for all 8th graders moving on to the high school. And those transition meetings involve both the receiving and the former special education case manager and the family and the kid. And we really attempt to provide a very clear planning meeting and a really warm relational handoff actually in all these transition activities. So I'll bounce it back to you, Todd, to talk about the rest.
So other bits and pieces that we've been working on as part of this particular pillar in terms of social emotional learning and teaching and tools for kids. Last year, we were able to have 85 kids participate in summer boot camps, working with our various money pools. Susan and I were just strategizing a few weeks ago on this, freeing up more dollars for doing those same kinds of things this summer, which really helped those students who have been missing bits and pieces. And we know during this whole pandemic, how many kids are missing not just bits and pieces, but whole chunks, and being able to offer that support for kids to get caught up a little bit. We've also, as part of our plan moving forward, was to provide a full-time behavior intervention specialist at each of our elementaries. We've had a half-time person there in each of the buildings for a number of years. We've seen the impact of having somebody dedicated to those buildings. And then we've also added that social emotional counselor position at our secondary schools as well. Again, somebody on staff who's highly trained, able to work with kids specifically to help them learn how to regulate, learn how to adapt to the buildings, work through really, really difficult situations. And we've had a lot of, very difficult situations that have happened this year. And that staff, this team of behavior specialists have just been able to wrap around kids and families and support them in ways like we've never been able to before. And then the last bit there, we've got the COVID restrictions for kinder camps, Ready for K. We're just not able to do those like we have in the past. And so we've even had to not do our Stepping Stones program or a discovery model, which is a huge setback for us in terms of giving kids skills and tools for what they need to be in this world. And so we're suspending those until this next go around. We're very anxious about how the spring unfolds, about how the vaccine unfolds, about how our community is doing with the pandemic, and to get back to giving these particular tools for kids and families. Any questions on pillar one?
Right. Yeah, Todd, I have a question about the total number of behavior referrals from the previous year. We're seeing the numbers on here, and I'm just seeing a wide variability in the numbers at the elementary level. For example, Redwood had 449 and Riverside had 1,796, which is a four-fold difference. And so I'm wondering if you or anyone might be able to explain why there's such a wide gap between those numbers.
Yeah, so truly it's the skill sets that are coming from those families. You see a lot of association over the years. We talked about poverty, and the higher the poverty level for a family, the more complex it is in that household generally. As folks are struggling, you see folks act out of that stress response part of their brain rather than the prefrontal cortex, where we would like to always be acting. It's just not always possible. And so you've seen a lot of work on all these buildings to really work to help families and kids work towards self-regulation. So that's one of the biggest differences we see in the demographics between the different buildings. A big shift for us is not just to work with the kid, but to start working with their whole family. And so our partnership with Options, for example, we really have that solid connection with an options counselor at each one of our sites, but then also the wrap services for families as kids are struggling more and more. We actually put what's called a youth priority 1 meeting for that kid and family. And then we provide a lot of resources around them to help them all learn. I participate in something called positive behavior teaching, which is a program that Options created to help support parents who are just struggling with their parenting skill sets. And so I teach the brain science and adverse childhood experiences portion of that, and then they teach the family through an extended time, which has been very beneficial. Same kind of program we're using in our Stepping Stones program that we've seen a lot of success already.
And I'm going to add, there's another piece of data that isn't in here. And so Parkside and Riverside are truly our schools who have to address behavior and social emotional learner at a significantly higher level. And so we have been intentional about providing resources to those schools to meet those needs. The data I reference is we can also track the number of students with 15 or more referrals at each school. And those two particular schools stand out in that data. So what we have is a cohort of students who are being documented the most. And and they may be over documenting, but when a student is that intensive and to do a good functional behavior assessment and intervention planning, it's really relevant to the big picture of how to support that kid and family. And Todd mentioned the positive behavior teaching in partnership with Options. Those two schools have the most families involved in that as well.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah, I mean, even if we try to look at schools that are maybe similar, like for example, Lincoln and Highland, I would consider those probably fairly similar demographics, same part of town. Even the numbers on those two schools are Highland has double actually more than double than what Lincoln has. So I guess maybe my question is
calibration.
Is the threshold for referral different at different schools, or is there a standard?
And that's something Director Zatola tries to focus on every year with our building administrators, is calibration of their systems and what gets documented and what does not. And so the demographics are changing at Highland. I would just share that with you as well. And we've seen Principal Nevin have to work harder and harder each year. So there is some of that aspect of data.
What was that?
That the demographics at Highland have really changed over the last 10 to 15 years and has resulted in them needing to address more behavior than historically.
Do you have any
Brian, hey Brian, the other thing that we do, because inter-rater reliability is an issue and calibration is an issue always with people. So we try to look at schools, that specific school over time. So similar staff, similar training, how are they doing over time? Ideally, the goal is to get those referrals down to as few as possible, because we know that referrals mean that's a disruption in a student's learning. But it is about the sensitivity to staff and how they've agreed to code those, right? But what are the kind of referrals as well? We've seen with a lot of the trauma-informed practices and the positive behavior teaching, where as kids are trying to learn a different behavior, you actually might have more referrals for that child for a while, because it's not comfortable to do something that I don't want to do until I learn how to do it and get rewarded the right way and my brain adapts. You actually might have a higher frequency of referrals until that person comes, oh, now I get why I would do it this way. And then there's those referrals start dropping off. So that's another way to kind of think about that. It is hard to compare school to school because of the staff part of that.
Sure. Yeah. And I think there's other factors, Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, but Lincoln went through the CLEAR project for a full 3 years. And that project in itself, staffs have to have a vote of a vast majority of staff want to participate in that professional development for us to even contract out to have the project. And so that was a piece that maybe they are seeing things differently or experiencing or handling things differently that they may not be documenting as much because they're able to not let it rise to the level of documenting, if that makes sense. So,
yeah.
So that piece about providing the professional development across the board is so critical, because I think they have been the fortune of having more than others over time.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the explanation.
All right, on to pillar 2. I think this is you, Todd.
Yep. So I'll just keep going. So pillar 2 here, grounding in practices in equity and inclusive practices. We've been working on looking at our culture, providing training for kids and staff, as well as for our community. We highlighted our demographics so you can see them for the last couple of years. Essentially, we don't change a whole lot. So our student population will move just a teeny little bit, but you can see the biggest disparity in terms of, we'd like our staff population, right, our demographics to reflect our kid population, because we want our kids to see themselves in the faces of their adults that they're working with. And you can see, our Hispanic population is much, much higher than it is for our adult working population. So you'll see a little bit of shifting there over time, but it generally isn't that much. We've been working to really go after our equity, diversity, and inclusion in the district. You all have been a high level of participation. I'm really grateful for that at the school board level. But as Danny and I were talking earlier today, it's kind of a chicken egg thing. You have to have a culture where people see your culture in your community and say, oh, I want to come live and work in that community there. And if they don't see themselves in that culture, they're a little more resistant to that. So we're working on language in our postings, in the way that we would how we represent ourselves on our website, how we communicate, and those kinds of things, to increase that number on our staff so we more accurately reflect our kid population. So again, it's always going to keep an thing that we're focused on at all times moving forward. And over time, I think it will change for sure. Any questions on that pillar?
I think the next slide is also still on that pillar, and Director Cantola is going to reference this one.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Dr. Todd. Thanks, Barrett, Tommy, Trish, Sherry. Big shout out. That was a lot of work that you guys did to get that schedule together and everything. So thank you for doing that. I want to reference something that Barrett said, because I think it's applicable to this particular work that we're doing. And Todd referenced it too. You have to have a culture both in the school and in the community before you can really do a good job of attracting candidates. And so referencing Barrett, I didn't queue him up for that presentation. That's just work that's going on in our schools in terms of diversity. Ryan could easily have done that at the high school as well. Several elementary schools could have done that type of presentation. So it is a focus that goes all the way through our culture, where we're trying to change how we do things. Small things, changing some posting language, changing some contract language, where we provide stipends for people, classified people who are bilingual. Those are things that we've worked with the Southern Oregon ESD and other human resource departments. What strategies do you guys use to attract different people? And so we've tried to incorporate those into our postings and into our contract language. Todd also referenced our website. We recently had an equity expert review our website and give us suggestions on ways to attract more candidates of a bilingual nature. And so we're looking forward to updating the website as well. The board, appreciate your guys' diligence. A lot of work passing an equity policy, passing JBB, the board resolution, the ACB as well. All those things go a long ways to changing our culture around. We've had some luck hiring. We've hired some really good candidates. It's not exactly in the same category, but we were very fortunate to hire 2 outstanding female administrators at the middle school level, and we hired an outstanding female administrator at the high school level. So I think for the first time in a while, we have a female person in leadership in our secondary schools. Very proud of the work that they're doing. They were outstanding candidates and earned the job all on their own, but very happy to have all of them. Jason Garcia, Hispanic background. Jason is our dean at the high school, and so we're excited about that. I've done a lot of hiring in 30 years. one of my best hires has been in my own department. For the very first time, I think we have an assistant at the district office who's bilingual, and it is amazing to watch the families come in and converse in Spanish with Marlene right there at our front desk. And so she has done an absolutely fantastic job. You guys know, because of presentations we've done in the past, that we try to do cultural agility with all of our new hires. Hopefully next year we'll move into cultural agility 201, hopefully. But we also know that our leadership needs more training. So both myself, Superintendent Cole, my whole department, we are going through centering equity in HR and breaking down institutional barriers. That's a training that's being promoted through the Southern Oregon ESD. And then kind of big news, I think, again, going back to that, it has to be both a community and a school system where people feel welcome in order to be able to recruit people. And so thanks to a lot of goodwill from Dutch Bros, they are willing to partner with us on developing a plan for not only District 7, but also potentially for our community on how we can be more diverse, bring more equity into our practices. I don't want to get Gary too excited, but one of the people that worked in Beaverton is Joth, who is the CEO of Dutch Brothers. And he worked in Beaverton to develop a similar plan with them in a cooperative nature. And one of the things that they came out of with was that every 8th grader would enter the 9th grader with an individualized plan going forward for their high school career. So it's a possibility. So I think that's probably going to be at the end of the year. Superintendent Kolb's going to say, Danny, that's your big goal for this year, is to make sure that you get that plan in place. So excited about where we're headed.
Thank you, Danny. There's a one-page summary. These are pulled from the one-page summary that is in your packet as part of this agenda item. That's what that top line reference. Any questions on pillar 2 from the board? A lot of work happening on that front.
Yeah. Not a question, it's a comment. It's just math. The demographics were different in the past. And even if you had staff that reflected the demographics in the past, there's going to be a lag to be able to bring those percentages up, unless you're going to go through and forcibly remove employees. So while you guys are doing a great job, it is going to be, you cannot mathematically immediately match the demographics.
Yes, yes, agreed. Something to strive for, but recognize that this is a long haul. Pillar number 3, Director Evans.
Hi there. I will be representing both Susan and I, as she's on grand jury and is still in session this evening. So our focus on academic outcomes for our students, really keeping a focus on what their post-secondary plans will be. In terms of implementing best practices in our classroom, one bullet that's not on there that we worked very hard on last year right before shutdown had kind of gotten to a really good point of working on our instructional framework and focusing our attention on the elements of good classroom instruction that we were going to agree to K-12 across the system. We've done a tremendous amount of new learning for our teachers with best practices. We have our beginning of the year professional development for our staff that are new to our district. And then we also provide many hours of professional development. Obviously, since COVID, that has depleted quite significantly in terms of our ability, but we did do some really good things virtually over the summer and have tried to do some things virtually this school year as well, but it's been a challenge. Our observations and evaluation system that Danny reports to you on is one of the ways we monitor how best practices are being implemented in the classroom. All of those observations have been done virtually this year in our Canvas courses. It's doable, but it has presented some challenges, and we're continuing to do those as this year progresses. Gary's favorite goal of guaranteeing 3rd grade reading is one that we because of state assessment being suspended last year, and we're anticipating that state assessment will be suspended as well this year. We're waiting for official notice this month on reading, math, and science assessments. But at the beginning of the year, our third graders did take the fall assessment, and 55% of them were at benchmark. Because there just has not been enough instructional time, the hybrid just, I mean, it's been a challenge. We did determine we did not want to give the winter assessment. We will be giving the spring assessment and seeing what kind of gains our third graders have made. But with the limited instructional time, we are anticipating an impact. With math, very little data there because of COVID. I did just for 8th grade math, we crunched some data yesterday on our mid-year math benchmark. And from that, 44% of those students tested, and this was 6th through 8th grade, are presenting negative growth gains. And so we know we have our work cut out for us in math going forward and what we need to do there. 9th grade on track is a very key data point that we follow and do a lot of work around with our 9th grade success team. In fact, the high school admin team and I were present at the 9th grade on track meeting today. We had probably about 30 freshman teachers around talking about students in this virtual world and how we can help support them with their learning. The state suspended data last year because of COVID shutdown, so did not report anything official. So by my hand calculation, we had about 78% of our 9th graders in the year on track. From the second quarter, this year after quarter 1 and quarter 2, we are currently at 75.2%. So we are seeing a decline in the amount of credit our freshmen are being successful at, but our work is not done. We have a lot of activity planned over the next couple of months with our after school support tutoring programs, our LIPI until we get the high school up and running. We'll also be offering boot camps, and we are starting to plan summer school. So there will be opportunities for those freshmen to recover the credit that they have not been able to get and really truly impacted by COVID. I think there's a next slide related to this in Pillar 3. Right, on attendance. Again, the state did not collect or report data for 1920. I did some calculation, and so it's not official data, but about 82% of our students as of February of 2020 last year were regular attenders. So we did see some improvement, but then quickly when COVID happened, we saw a decline in our regular attendance rate. As of December of 2020, when I reported to you last month, not last month, 2 months ago, we saw 76% of our students attending regularly. And I will just tell you, quarter 2 was even more difficult at the secondary level as students' ability to attend in this virtual world has become very, very problematic for them. I think everybody's just a little weary. Last board meeting, I reported to you on the dropout rate and on our 4- and 5-year graduation rate. Those both improved like what we had hoped when we set our goals. We are already looking ahead to the graduates of 21 and recognizing that more than likely we are going to see a number of 5th-year seniors, possibly 6th-year seniors, and in some cases, maybe even 7th-year seniors that we will try to continue to engage. Students can work until they're age 21 on their regular high school diploma. And we are planning to really help our students set a strong foundation for whatever they plan in post-secondary. Any questions about pillar number 3?
100% reading, that's going to move to 5th grade.
No more questions. Let's move on to pillar 4, Director Ely.
Hello, everybody. Pillar number 4 is all about student and staff safety, as well as our organizational capacity and the financial health of the district. So in student and staff safety, our schools report to me any incidents of like kids that fall on the playground or that they might get hurt playing sports. And they also report any staff incidents or injuries. So far this year, we've only had 3 student incidents or injuries reported. That's compared to a regular school year of probably, closer to 400 incidents that we have. And they report everything. So anytime, a kid trips and falls on the playground or, falls off of a swing or has an incident in a classroom, those are all reported to me, and we log them in a spreadsheet, and we monitor those for any kind of trends so that we can determine if there's anything that we need to do to kind of shore up our safety practices, or was there a facility or a grounds issue that needs to be taken care of. Those incident reports are very helpful for that. The staff incidents and injuries are the same situation. We monitor that data, and then we track it to see if there are any trends. Are there any areas that we need to provide additional training? If we do find that there are, I usually work with SAFE, and they will come out and they'll do assessments of wherever it is that we're noticing a trend, and then they'll provide the appropriate training for the staff members that where we are seeing the trends. So far this year, we've had 16 claims or incidents or injuries reported, and only 9 of those resulted in a work comp claim. And that's a very similar statistic as you would have seen last year or in previous years. We coordinate with district staff and our community partners for COVID-19 response. That has really taken up the majority of our safety response this year. There's been a lot that has gone into that. And one thing that I did want to mention related to Tommy and Barrett's presentation is our school nurses. We've hired a second one for the district, but both of the nurses have prepared safety presentations that the teachers can share with their students when they come back to school for the first time. And it's mainly reminding them of, why it's important to wear your mask, why it's important to wash your hands and maintain the physical distancing, and then just talking to them a little bit about how COVID-19 is transmitted. And so that's one other element that we have in place to help with bringing our kids back safely to school. Hiring the second nurse has been great. Martha Kovrig has been our nurse for years, and she is amazing. And so I'm glad that we were able to provide some additional support for her. Yes, we are doing new safety protocols as a result of COVID-19. As I mentioned, another thing that we do is we have to do facility inspections quarterly, and the schools do those in conjunction with their safety committee and their custodial staff and their administrators. Those reports are submitted to me, and I'll review those, and if there are any things that need to be corrected, we work on that, whether it's a behavioral issue that has been identified or a facility or grounds issue. And then I can have James and his crew help me with those. We also have to do fire marshal inspections every year, underground storage tank inspections, and elevator inspections. Those are all done annually by our vendors and by our fire department. We have to do emergency drills every year. We have to do a fire drill every month. And twice a year, we have to do active assailant drills and also earthquake drills. Our Grants Pass Public Safety helps us with our active assailant drills. They will go out to each school every time they do one of those, and they actually participate in the drill. So the drill is started, and then at the end of the drill, the police department staff will go around to each classroom and just check to make sure that everyone did what they were supposed to do, offer any hints or tips if they need to. And then do some follow-up with me just to let me know how it was going at each school. When I have time, I will go out to the school and help with those as well. I already mentioned about coordinating with a safe environmental hygienist. We do that pretty frequently. We work with her. Our district liability carrier does annual inspections, and that is inspections of all of our facilities and our grounds. And they, again, will provide us any things that they see that need to be corrected, or, and again, it's on facilities, grounds, or behavioral issues that they observe. And they spend a lot of time on our playgrounds as well. And they provide playground training for us. And so any staff that supervises on the playground or at the middle schools, any staff that supervise at the lunch periods, they do a training every year for those staff. Our Grants Pass Department of Public Safety, they do interior and exterior risk assessments. And this is to show us if there are any areas in our buildings that could be a safety breach. And so that is super helpful because they will check the perimeter of the buildings. They will check like what kind of shrubbery is planted close to the windows so that, you know, is it easy for someone to access a window, easy to access a roof, any of those kind of things that would allow someone to gain access to our facilities or to our students. And so those are super helpful for us. And then one thing I am super excited about is we have just posted for our risk management supervisor position, and that will definitely increase our operational capacity in this area. Now, I'm excited about that because that's going to help me a ton because it has become a full-time job in and of itself. So I think like I said, I'm super excited about that. I think there's one more slide, Todd. So now talking about our financial health. In 2019-20, our audited ending fund balance was right at 3.7 million. Our projected 2021 ending fund balance is just under 7 million. This is due partially to the ESSER funds, the first round of ESSER funds that we received. And also while we're in comprehensive distance learning, our expenses are not as much as what they are in a regular school year. This a lot is due to not as much usage of subs. Our extra duty expense is not as much. We've also noticed some savings with our utility bills. And so it's a variety of things have gone into the savings that we are able to achieve a $6.9 million ending fund balance. As we go throughout the rest of this school year, depending on, you know, the items that we see that we need to help support bringing students back to school safely, that might drift down a little bit. But we are also going to be receiving additional ESSER money. So we've got ESSER 1, that was about 1.6 million, and we're going to get ESSER 2 funds, and that is about 6.5 million. So all of that will be talked about when we do our next budget meeting, kind of what we're looking at as far as what we want to do with that funding and how that's all going to play together for our 21-22 budget. On improving our facilities, our long-range planning document and our facility assessments were completed by Soderstrom Architects in conjunction with James and I, doing a lot of work to help them with that. We have our traffic study in process. Due to COVID, that's taking them a little bit longer to get that done, but they are hopeful to have that by mid-February. So hopefully by the last meeting in February, I can have a preliminary report for you guys on that one. I'm also excited that we were able to bring back the board property committee. I think that's going to be super helpful as we move forward and look at how we can use some of those ESSER 2 funds to do some cool things in our buildings. And then our district properties are being studied by the property committee to determine the appropriate use of them. Do we need to look at selling some of our excess properties? Looking at the district's mission and how those properties all fit into that is one of the priorities of the property committee. And so super excited about having that committee to work with again. And is there one more, Todd, or is that the end? Oh gosh, we got lots more. We are also in the process of upgrading the HVAC units, as you guys are aware of that, which includes electrical upgrades for North and South, Allendale, Highland, and Riverside. We are also working with Amoresco. I have a meeting with them on Thursday, actually, to talk about upgrading our newer schools, Grants Pass High School, Lincoln, Redwood, and Parkside, to see if we can maybe do some upgrading of those systems as well, using some of those new ESSER monies. We are adding classrooms, another modular at Gladiola, the 2 classrooms or actually 4 classrooms at North and 4 classrooms at South. The South project is getting close to being done. North is taking a little bit longer. We've had some issues with just finding the contractor with finding enough subs to finish that project. We've had some weather issues. We've had some COVID exposure issues amongst the crew there. And so that one's taking a little bit longer. I don't have an ETA on the Gladiola project yet. The modular has been ordered. We're working on the site prep for that, but I do not have an ETA for when that one's going to be completed. We have submitted seismic rehabilitation grants again for Lincoln and Redwood. I'm super hopeful that we will get at least one of those. That will help us to take care of, at least if we do get one, it will take care of the roof replacement. And if we get both, we can do that. But even if we don't get those, looking at how we can accomplish replacing those roofs over this summer so that we can go into next winter with nice, dry, warm buildings and not have to worry about the leaking that we have there. And then we are also looking at the possibility of adding some space at Riverside to facilitate another classroom for our Stepping Stones program, which has been a really successful program for some of our kids who have behavior challenges. The LED light project is well underway and nearing completion. So far, I've gotten some great reports on just the improvement of lighting in each of our buildings. And yet we always do an ongoing evaluation of our energy usage. We monitor our bills each month so that we can see if there are any spikes of usage in electricity, natural gas, water, all of those areas. And then we have our energy audits done periodically by a qualified firm, which is one of the requirements of using our Senate Bill 1149 funds. Do I have one more, Todd, or is that it?
That should be it.
All right. Do you guys have any questions about Pillar 4? I know I just pushed out a lot of information to you.
Hey, Sherry, it's Brian. I just had a question about the bullet that talks about seismic rehabilitation grants for Lincoln and Redwood, and I didn't totally follow how that connects with roof replacement.
Because part of the seismic rehab that they do is lifting the roof up to bring the structural supports into the building. And so when they have to lift the roof off, it qualifies for the grant to do a roof replacement. And so that's what we would have to do at both of those buildings. And the rehabilitation grants have increased from 1.5 million to 2.5 million per location. And so we would have plenty of funding to do all of the structural work that needs to be done, as well as the roof replacement.
Okay, great. And then do you have any sort of update on maybe estimated completion for the HVAC later? Is that later this year or is that next year? I don't totally remember what the estimated completion on that was.
That project is going to start in full where they're actually doing the work. They'll start that as soon as school is out because we need to have folks out of the building just because of the invasive work that needs to be done. So we hope the majority of that, the goal is the majority of that to be done over the summer. We probably will have to drift into the fall just because of the magnitude of the project.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong. Securing the seismic grants will help reduce the amount of debt service we incur based on the funds that we're borrowing to, because I think we went for the whole package on HVAC, electrical, and the roofs. Is that accurate?
Yes. And so, yeah, that would be a possibility that we wouldn't have to use the money that we're borrowing for the HVAC project to complete the roof replacements. And also looking at another option too is looking at those ESSER 2 funds to use those for the roof replacement too. So we have a few things in play that we'll be able to kind of work our way through as far as accomplishing some of these projects. And actually, the ESSER money has really been a godsend when it comes to some of these structural things that we've needed to get done. And so I'm actually really excited about kind of the possibility of some of the work that we're going to be able to do over the next year.
Kirk, I don't remember the roofs at those schools being part of the scope of that project. I thought it was just lighting and HVAC.
Yeah, I'm recalling, they listed multiple levels of packages, and I believe the board went for the top tier package, which included the roofs.
Yes.
Is that so, okay, so, yeah, if you remember the multi-tiers that they put out there, and the board went for the largest tier, and that did include the roofs.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep, which may be free. So we really hope that those grants come through. Sure. So,
Yep.
Job.
So I had a question about so the work that's being done this summer. You have a bullet up there about determining feasibility at our additional facilities. Would that work, in addition to the work that's happening this summer, would that cover all of our facilities for the CO2 thing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So this is Member Brownell. When you mentioned 3 different drills the students have to go through each year, one was fire, one was earthquake. What was the third one?
It used to be called dangerous intruder drills, but now they're calling them active assailant because the things that they're seeing that have been happening out in the world have not just always been a dangerous intruder type of event. And so they felt that kind of renaming that to be active assailant was more appropriate to some of the activity that they were seeing out in the world that was happening.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Kirk, is the risk management supervisor position, that's a new position for the district?
It is a new position. We have not replaced the folks in the in the business department. And we had an individual who was doing some of the safety work. That has been very consuming for Director Ely. So this position is actually going to be supervisory in nature and allow them to do investigations on employee accidents, file all the claims with the respective agencies. Sherry, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So risk management encompasses a lot of areas. So it's student safety, it's staff safety, it's workers' comp, it's OSHA compliance, it's COVID response, it's facility and grounds issues that come up. If we have any, as Kirk mentioned, if there are staff accidents, we have to investigate each of those. So somebody has to go out and do that work when we file a workers' comp claim. It's coordinating with OSHA. If OSHA comes on site to do any inspections, it's everything that you can think of that's related to safety and risk management for the district, from student, staff, buildings, everything. And I have been doing the bulk of that for ever since I was hired in the district, which has been almost 30 years ago. And just because of the district has gotten larger, and especially with COVID, it has become a job that is just, it needs one person that can actually devote some full time to that job. They can go out and do actual trainings in the buildings and be on site to provide that kind of training, and which has a huge impact on our experience rating for workers' comp, because it brings the the incidents down when there's actually somebody that can go out and actually do that training rather than just relying on the virtual safe schools training that we've been doing recently. So there's a laundry list of things I could go on with. They'll coordinate with the district nurse. We have communicable disease issues that come up that I work with our nurses on. That person will be able to help with that. So lots of stuff.
This is Member Durbin, of course. I start to talk and my dog starts to bark. But I just, I appreciate the attention and the note on the risk management supervisor piece. I think that's a critical component to, I know Kirk, it's been on your goals for the last few years to begin to plan for the eventual transition of Director Ely leaving our district. And I know we've been concerned with all the different hats she wears in our district. I think this is a great first step in not only taking some of that burden off of her plate, but really starting to identify, okay, how do we piece this together and make sure we've got the right people in place to not only allow her to, you know, handle her load a bit better, but also to make sure that we've got the right people for when that transition does happen in the future.
I appreciate you acknowledging that, Casey. That was an intentional step in this process that Sherry and I have been working through that. I appreciate that, those comments.
All right, any other questions? Just want to point out that I appreciate the presentation tonight. This is a direct result of, I think, work that the board and administrators did starting last year. And I think it's very nice to see that the things that we talked about and felt were important for our district have come to fruition, and to see the work that's being done and to see the excellent work that's being done, I think is very gratifying. And I appreciate the presentation from your leadership tonight, Kurt. And I also look forward to, as we have this information now, as we go forward to June, to talk about these pillars and our plan, and to talk about, you know, where do we go next as we continue on this journey of improving. And so I just want to point that out to the board, how grateful I am for the board's role in helping this, but especially for our district leadership in participating and taking these things seriously and doing such a nice job. So I just want to publicly acknowledge that and thank everyone for their hard work. So thank you. Let's go on to our next report, our superintendent's report. So SOESD, letter to the school board and our local service.
Yeah, I'll just combine these into two. They're pretty much identical. So the letter is a formality that we need to issue to you as a school board. And really it gets into the local service plan. And what is the local service plan? The ESD is obligated to work with regional school districts to develop a plan on how they will use funding to support their resident school districts. And so the focus of the ESD plan, if I can shorten it up, is really they provide support in 4 specific areas, and it's administration and business services. Now that one is not one that we access much of. It's really designed to support small school districts who maybe don't have a business department or a personnel department and so on. And so that is not something we access a lot from them. School improvement, such as professional development, assistance with the Student Success Act and Student Investment Account, securing grants at the state level that can be accessed locally. That is a big one that we participate in with the SOESD. Special education, particularly they are charged with what's called low incident disabilities. Disabilities that are not real common, such as traumatic brain injury, blind, visually impaired, autism specialists. So they employ specialists that support and programs that support multiple districts. And so that is a big chunk of their expenses each year and how they service districts. And then technology and media, everything such as our library, numerous computer-based programs. They also do data hosting our data on their servers. And so we get significant cost breaks, and we don't have to build and maintain our own servers, and it's all backed up. And so it's a range of things that they provide, and it's in more detail in the plan. If you were curious about anything else as related it's my recommendation to the board that you would approve the local service plan. It will go back to, each local board will approve, and then it will go back to the ESD board to adopt and approve. So this is a step in that process for them and this board's role in that.
We'll be voting on that later tonight. Any thoughts or comments on that?
Well, this board in particular was a driver in some of the changes to the
Significant driver, yes.
And so I'm not getting into the details, but I want to know from you, are we keeping the ground we gained because that was a difficult time?
Yes, we are. So not only some historical context for board members that weren't here. At the state level, they passed legislation that allowed districts to opt out and reclaim some of the funds based on, we don't access the business services. We don't access the level of sped services that some other districts do because of certain programs. And so my predecessor went down a pathway to essentially negotiate a semi-withdrawal of participation with the SOESD, for which the district then saw an uptick in revenue flow through dollars, money that was designated for the ESD based on our student population, but then came back to us in terms of cash that went to the general fund. And so with the pressure that we put on regionally and then the new superintendent that came in, Brian Shoemake to Medford began studying their use and access, and both being the biggest districts, we found that we were both accessing the least amount of services, and we contributed the most funding to the ESD, being the largest school districts. So those two moves essentially encompassed nearly half of the students in the region represented, and that was a significant blow to the ESD and then what they would be able to provide to all districts. So it really forced them into changing their business model, that we basically would commit to certain services for a period of time and give them notice should we decide that we don't want to access those services anymore. And it has really benefited, ultimately it's benefited the smaller districts and definitely the bigger districts by them significantly changing their business model. So that's some historical context that our board and superintendent at that time applied the pressure. It was handed off to myself, and then that pressure was joined by Medford to really have them go back to the drawing board and do that collectively with superintendent. So I believe the entire region is in a better place, and their model is now definitely serving the needs of all districts.
All right. Board reports and special concerns. You need to bring anything up tonight?
This is Member Brownell, and I would just like to say what an outstanding article on our former District 7 personnel, Tom Blanchard, and it was fun to read about him, and thought they did a great job.
Thank you. Gary?
So after the last meeting, I had some discussions related to our superintendent evaluation. So I'm kind of wondering when's the appropriate time to discuss whether we might.
Executive session, it is, there's a presentation scheduled for executive session on superintendent evaluation and process.
But isn't how we do the evaluation in the open session part?
I've elected to have any future conversations about superintendent evaluation to be in executive session.
All right.
Any other concerns or requests or reports? Okay, well, let's move on to item 5, our action items tonight. So we have approval of multiple different agenda items. The first will be approval of 2021 and 22 elementary and secondary school calendar, 5.1.1 and 5.1.2. There it is right there. I don't think we heard a report on it, but it is in the packet.
Yeah, I'll give a brief summary and then Trish, you can jump in if you need to. So this is an annual piece that's presented to the board. Our calendar looks very similar to what it looks like in prior years. It does, as we had planned to this year, it does start 1 week earlier than it did 2 years ago, because this year we also started earlier. We've attempted to align days on the elementary calendar with, to the best we can, with days on the secondary calendar. And a number of things play into that: conference dates and being on a trimester versus a semester, professional development days and time. And so Director Evans and Director Cantola have reviewed this, and some of this has been presented with staff, and it's here for your annual approval. Any additions there, Trish?
Nope, I think you covered it.
Thank you. Oh, and was presented at Parent Advisory Council as well.
We'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve elementary and secondary calendar. Great.
Do we have a second? Second. Let's go with it.
That would be 21, 22.
Any further discussion? Let's just hope we have school.
I would like to make a motion for that. School in 2021.
All right, hearing no further discussion, you can give a roll call vote, please.
Member De La Grange,
Yes.
Member Durbin,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes.
Member Coleman,
Yes.
Member Wilkins, yes, Member Rick.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, 5.2, approval of the new courses at GPHS, which we've heard this evening. And we will also put in 5.3 through 5.6, which is approval of resolution of our capital projects fund, our bus replacement fund, our ballot for local service plan, and approval and first reading of policies and ARs, GCAB, personal electronic devices and social media for staff. We'll entertain a motion to approve those action items.
I'll make a motion with, on all those.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second. The Cliff and Cassie show.
Thank you, Cliff and Cassie. Any discussion?
So by sending an email related to the electronic devices policy, feedback.
Yes, and it was already presented in the to the board and in the public. So now's the time, if you wish for this policy to look different, to identify the portions of which you would prefer them to look different and have that conversation with the board.
Okay.
Coffee's doing that. Do we normally lump so many things together for a vote like that? Or I was under the assumption maybe we do 5.2 and then the other things are kind of different topics, or is this like a consent agenda where we're just like approving it all at once?
Well, I hadn't had anybody bring up to me that there was an issue, so I was hoping to expedite the meeting. If you would like to speak to one, we can approve what everyone will agree on, and we can talk about what you would like to talk about, but that's why we have discussion. So do you have an issue with one of the resolutions?
I don't have a particular issue with any of them. I think I'm just maybe accustomed to them being approved separately. Is that not? No? Just lump them all together?
Yep.
Okay.
And we have to get the motion, the second, whether we do them all at once or one at a time, or bounce to the same thing. We still get to discuss anything we want to.
Okay.
Like I'm about to do for the policy.
Okay, go ahead.
So the electronic devices policy, I found one section of the policy to be overly restrictive. I think it's like the third paragraph. essentially says that you can't use your electronic device to take a picture or you'd be in violation of the policy. Really don't know what the work environment is at school, and I can understand that there are issues related to if students have to be in pictures, but I have to use the ability to take a picture of the sprinkler that's not working and text it to the Sherry, so that's the only person I have on speed dial. And stuff like that, and this policy would actually cause them to be in violation if they use their phone in that manner. So just a blanket, don't use your devices. Seems like we could just put some more verbiage in there, talk about what are appropriate uses, and or maybe just talk about those things that are problematic, such as having student pictures because you have to have consent forms and stuff like that. Then the last part, the entire last paragraph, essentially says that there's a bunch of stuff you can do that's illegal, state and federal law, and we're going to turn you in if you do that. State and federal law should speak for itself. I don't, as a general rule, I try to avoid bringing other regulations, laws, rules into our policies if they're covered elsewhere. So that whole section, I didn't see anything new or unique that only applied to our district. That's just stuff that is covered elsewhere. So I would be in favor of taking that section out or making it much more abbreviated. Essentially, don't do illegal stuff.
Can you point me to?
Would be the second half of the, it starts on the fourth line in the middle, the taking, disseminating, transferring, or sharing of received pornographic, and then move on the rest of that. So Gary, we can definitely abbreviate that. So if you violate the law, you'll be reported as such. And so, yeah, we can definitely abbreviate that.
And as for the rest of it, just try to give them as, let them have the benefit of the devices without crossing the lines that are issues for the district.
This is Member Durbin, and I agree with Gary as far as if we have the technology at our disposal to make our lives easier, as long as they don't cross that line, I'm generally in agreement with that. I know it's difficult sometimes on how to make sure that they're not crossing the line and using it for reasonable uses, because you start to get into a gray area. So if it's possible to allow some flexibility for that, I'm in favor. But if it creates more hassle than it's worth, I understand that point of view as well.
So we can work up some language there to narrow the scope and focus on appropriate and inappropriate use. And so when we pass this, it's with amendments for a second reading.
I don't think we have to do anything. This is just the first reading. This is
Right, the first reading.
There'll be another version.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, any other discussion on any of those agenda items? All right, hearing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Member DeLaGrange,
Yes.
Member Durbin,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Board Chair Nelson,
Yes.
Member Pullman,
All right.
Member Wilkins. Yes. Member Richardson.
Yes. All right, thank you. Those action items are approved. Good luck with the basketball class. Signing up. All right, our next item is our future meetings. We will meet on the 23rd of February, 5 p.m. And then after that is March 9th. I don't know if we want to discuss the board meeting for spring break or not at this meeting. We want to wait a week.
I think we can wait. There's plenty of time for things to develop.
Bite your tongue, sir.
Really?
That's optimistic thinking. Thank you. Great.
All right, we can all just agree to cancel it for now.
But it's gonna happen. Like some Thanksgiving one.
All right, and then we'll have a future budget committee meeting, which still needs to be adjourned. So we'll adjourn our meeting currently, and then we will head into executive session after a 5-minute